Hey, Site of Charlie. I'm here at Charleston, South Carolina, doing a group tour. Let me take you along with me. George Washington.
That's going to be an $1,100. That's going to be an $1,100 ticket for me, not for you, but for me. So when we stop, if you'll just help me. Now there's more room than we need right here. Just a little walkway, just a couple of 3 feet, so we can get to all we've got to have. That way I don't finish my week on a ticket. So, all right, when you stand right here, you can't talk about anything without mentioning the cobblestones behind me here. Originally English town, which they couldn't get to without too much debris in the streets. So after the earthquake, they built 3 central fire stations. One of them just around the corner is not active anymore. The other is large. Behind those, they built corresponding fire towers. Each tower had a bell, and each of those bells was connected by electro-telegraph lines to call boxes all over town. And in 1890, there were only 4 other motor cities that had a system like this. That's state of the art from 1890. Fire, if some of you are here several times today, fire was an early and constant problem for Charleston. So in the 1820s, they got a guy from Charleston, architect that grew up here. His name was Robert Mills. He was asked to design a building that took burn down.
This Robert Mills building, first fireproof building that was ever made.
Hopefully, once we get out of the neighborhood, it'll quiet down for us a little bit. It's noisy in here, but hopefully not as loud. It's kind of piggyback on that earthquake thing again. You might have already noticed that big building with the white columns across from us here. It's called Hibernian Hall, which I'll talk about in just a second. You can see the wooden front doors. After that earthquake, everything you see in front of those doors was gone. So that entire portico had collapsed, a lot of debris in the streets. Saved that building from the Civil War. Then they saved that building from the big earthquake in 1886. What they couldn't save that building from? Termites. So they tore the original down in 1968, built that one in its place. When you look at pictures from the 1800s, you really can't tell the difference here easily. The reason I mention that, that's the only recreated building you'll see. There's a lot of restored buildings.
This white building is Irish headquarters building back in the day.
Have you ever run across those basket makers? You could call this amazing craft, and it certainly is, but it's more than that. It's an amazing story. It was said a few moments ago that many of the enslaved people who came here came from the west coast of Africa, the rice coast of Africa. But as those enslaved ancestors arrived here, they are not bringing carry-on bags, right? What they do have with them, though, the knowledge you need inside to make the tools you have to work in the rice harvest. And so, in some cases, what you're seeing are actually huge processing rice. Because what happens with rice is the plant grows and matures, and you chop it, stack it, and it dries, and then you flail it, and then you put it inside what looks like a mortar and pestle, just a big hollowed-out stump. You're not grinding that rice; you're bumping it to open up the husk. So on a breezy day, you take a basket called a fanner basket, use that to winnow the rice. Toss it in the air, let the chaff blow away, keep more valuable rice kernels. All of the early rice harvesting techniques on the Carolina coast were all West African in origin. It's not the Europeans who now do this. The clock tower that's over your head right now is the oldest working colonial clock tower in the country. The bells upstairs have been across the Atlantic Ocean 7 different times. Originally, the bells were created by the same founder that delivered the bell. We are going to go in the building, and as quick as we get to the door, make a quick left, go around the side aisle.
St. Michael's, one of the oldest.
The cedar box, and they've always been like that. Can I get y'all to move? Well, you can stay where you want to because of the hearing. But I'm trying to center the group so it stays intact. If you want to. There's a lock. Just outside that door. It's right there. Just flip it. You go right in. Yeah, there's nothing special about me at all. So if you want to sit in history rather than standing, you can do that. If you're going to open up one of these boxes, it's really simple. Just reach over the edge of the door, a little simple wooden latch, and flip it. And if you're going to do that, you come closer in so we're not too far scattered out. So again, you can sit in one of these boxes if you like to. It's really simple. It's just there you go. There you go. It'll work. And again, the Church of England largely is a derivative, and the Church of largely true of the Catholic Church. And in the Catholic faith, the Mass, the table's always very central to what they're doing. But this church is being built between 1752 and 1761, right after something called the Great Awakening, the First Great Awakening, big religious revival in the country. So during that time period, the spoken word, the preaching, is becoming more and more important with all that. So it's almost like, where should we focus? Should we be looking at that table or what's called a double decker, where you have that pulpit lectern combination? You come out a little bit further, some of you are close enough to see there's a hand-wrought iron altar rail up here in the front, imported from England in 1772. If you're close enough, you can see there's a gate that's open on that rail. Closer still, you can see circles inside of the gate. If you look at those circles, they're often like low-cost loans. Of course, not all the French people around here were spoken English, that kind of thing. So there's some help people coming from those countries. Whole area through there, that's all French Huguenot settlements up there originally. This is going to sound like a strange segue, but have you seen the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson? Okay, if you've seen that movie, you've already seen the house across the street. That's the one they used for Aunt Charlotte's house. During the course of the movie, Mel Gibson, Heath Ledger, walking on the piazza right there. So that house was used in that film. In the movie, Mel Gibson plays a fictional man named Benjamin Martin. Fictional character, but largely based on a real guy named Francis Marion, who did in real life what you see Mel Gibson do in the movie. That hit and run tactics where it's kind of like guerrilla warfare, where they're hitting. I wish I could find you the street where there's not construction and renovation going on, but I've been here for 10 years, and 6 of those years, you can't go down any street and not have some kind of construction going on. So we stopped for construction, and we won't do any more tours in Charleston. Let's talk about where we are at the moment, okay? The homes that we're seeing now and going to be seeing are primarily late 1700s and early 1800s. They are single-family homes. That's all this is going to be zoned for. And they are restored, not recreated. Let's talk about financially. We are south of Broad on the peninsula. It's the 5th greatest concentration of wealth in the country. Real estate's going to start at about $1,000 per square foot from there. And most of the folks that live down this way are just delighted when you call them SOBs, which down here means south of Broad. One of the things that I love that they do is take an old building and change its purpose, like this cream-colored house you're looking at here. Can you tell this was originally a horse stable? Okay, carriage house for the house next door. Can you see the carriage? Can you see the stall-shaped doors, the carriage kind of door in the front right there? By the early 1930s, this became the family home of a woman named Annie Gamble Waring. She was married to a man named Julius Waits Waring.
The First Presbyterian Church.
In the city of Charleston, and is part of the reason why this street is called what it is. Because when Charleston's first founded back in 1670, you could come here and be almost any kind of religious group you want to be. Here's what you better not do. If you're not part of the Church of England, don't you be calling yourself a church. You can meet together. You have to call yourself a meeting house, not a church. The first meeting house sat on this little street. So the name of the street was the street that leads to the meeting house. 200 streets on it. It's called meeting house. What they were trying to do on white Europeans, like the Spanish threat to the south, the French threat, pirates, Native Americans, and slave uprisings, got all these problems with invading groups. So what they want are white Europeans. So the bait for that was to offer religious freedom. You could be was the southernmost outpost of the British Empire in North America. St. Augustine, Florida, was the northernmost outpost of the Spanish Empire. So it was constant fighting. 1702 and 1701 burned the city. And then in 1706 there was a joint invasion by the Spanish and the French here, which got repulsed, but there's constant fighting between these groups. So the Catholics is forced to keep back. And you can open up the wall. Alright, what you need to be able to So what you need to be able to see is this little plaque behind me right here. What this plaque means is that you have now reached the southwestern corner of that original wall of settlement. So we started up here where the drawbridge was in Middletown, about where St. Michael's Church is right now. We walked to the southwestern corner. So double what you walked in your mind so far, that'd be the full measure of the western wall of that original settlement. Okay? The reason the southern wall and the northern wall are shaped like this because there are bodies of water on both sides. Have y'all been to the market yet? Yeah, the market. Have you been to the market yet? When you go to the market, you'll be standing on top of what was originally a tidal creek called Daniels Creek. That's like a small river for us. And then down here on the southern side, bounded by another tidal creek called Vander's Creek. Today we call that Water Street. Went on some beyond that, but legally ended that year. That same year, he took his earnings from that trade and built this huge home. Can you see his initials in the balcony work? NR? Nathaniel Russell. You see where the balconies curve out from the windows. You know what that's all about. Come on, ladies. What are they wearing in 1808?
Dresses.
Hoop skirts. Hoop skirts. Mr. Russell had some daughters. He's trying real hard to get those girls married off. It's not the only thing he put in the house for the girls. Inside the house, there's a staircase. The staircase is 3 stories tall. It doesn't touch the wall anywhere as it comes down. Made of solid mahogany. The idea was those girls going to float down that stairway like that. Some young man at the bottom going to be smitten and ask for their hand in marriage. I'm going to try and be nice about this. How much some of these houses look alike, the way they're designed. They're done in what's called a Charleston single house pattern. Single house for us means, has nothing to do with how many people live in it. Single house for us means it's always just 1 room wide. 1 room wide. With these houses, it'll be the side of the house, the gable end of the facing street. The door on the side is known as a piazza screen because as you see, that door doesn't seem to go in. Certainly not in the house. This is something called a piazza. All those piazzas will face south, like these are doing, or they'll face west. And the reason they do that, pick up the evening breeze that usually comes from one of those directions. They brought that design here from Barbados, where many of the early settlers in Charleston came from. They were English people. They had sugar plantations. So if you're looking for floor space where the plans are laid to begin the bloodiest war in American history, the next 2 buildings in a row, I'm not going to stop again, but I will point them out. This next in the line, remember, at first, this is a proprietorship. It's a business for the first 50 years. Walked out of that house one night, went down here to Water Street, which is Vander's home. So during that period, in England, if you're building a nice home or church, you always build that house out of stone. Do we have any stone here? No. What we do have a lot of, because of the rivers, is mud and clay. So they took that stuff and made bricks. Built their house out of bricks. Then they covered it in stucco. Then they got really busy drawing lines in the stucco to make it look like it's made out of that expensive imported stone. Very popular to do that. In fact, anytime you see a house that looks like it's made out of stone, it only looks that way. You're not going to find any stone-built private family homes in Charleston. They don't exist. And when they first started working the brick in the 1700s, the brick wasn't very good. So the stucco isn't just decoration, they're actually sealing that brick up against the weather when they do that. What they were trying to do was to keep up with their English cousins. They're not going to spend the money to get the stone here, but they want to look like they've got the same money their English cousins have, so they're going to make it. When that storm hit, the house that sat there originally was destroyed. So that is a post-Hurricane Hugo house. I think they did a pretty good job of fitting that into the character of the historic district. Here's what gives away as a new house. Look how much smaller it is than its neighbors. Just not built on the same scale at all. Right? Nice house, I'll be happy to live there, but not built on the same scale as these other period homes you're seeing around you. If you read our history all the way through from 1670 and founding to the present day, you'd find that it's never, ever in our history been more than 50 years between those life-changing hurricanes. The average for us is a 30 to 50-year window. The last one was 1989. 1989. So we are well into that window. But you know, sometimes in life, the worst thing ever happens to you ends up being the best thing ever happens to you, and that's what Hugo was for Charleston. This city has been through a renaissance since then. Like just a complete changeover, a lot of new money, a lot of new blood, some old buildings out on bare islands that should have been gone years ago, got taken out to sea and stuff, and so now new development, a lot of that stuff. So a lot of upgrade in Charleston since Hurricane Hugo. Stop right here. Stop on this round high district. Earthquake bolts. They were leftover repair work from that 1886 earthquake. What they did to save the brick building after the quake was to run iron rods all the way through the building, no directions. Inside, underneath the floor, there's a turnbuckle. They tighten it up slowly, bring the walls back in line. It's kind of going to put braces on the side of the built from the left. You can usually tell the age on a brick building versus a building before 1886 by looking at the bolts on the outside. That's earthquake repair, not earthquake prevention. Anywhere between 10 to 20 earthquakes
on the second most active
Woodstock, Georgia, and Woodstock, New York.
in the States.
Most of our earthquakes are detected more than felt. If that makes sense to you. Because there's no rock in our city, the last big earthquake in 1986, the first hand accounts say the streets of Charleston rose and fell like the sea. Supposed to have one of those kind of quakes about every 100 years. The last one was 1886. 1886. So, keep on warm. Y'all been noticing the shutter pattern yet? Look at the first floor, they're solid. You look above that, they're louvered. Now that looks wrong to us, but you'll see it here, you'll see it there, you'll see it right there. That looks wrong to us, but you'll see it. These streets have been here for a long time, but not always paved streets. And so in time, you had animals and people keeping a lot of dust and debris. With those solid shutters on the bottom, you see stuff off your furniture, plus a little better security. Close the louver one does opposite people circulation and debris with the better. And we do have a group in town that oversees all that. They're called the Board of Architectural Review.
Land Cruiser.
This is 1931, and they oversee all the external. I'm sure you've got a car through the sidewalk. Okay, I'm going to do this next thing a little bit differently. Most of the time when I stop you, obviously I'm trying to group you so I can talk to you and not be screaming at you. But you can't do that in this next spot. There's a little place right here. Most of the time, we're not really seeing what's here. The street's built right up to the sidewalk, and a lot of times there are gates and walls that you can't really see what's going on. So there's one little spot right here, but you can't actually peer in the courtyard. It's this next one under that tea olive tree right there. As you walk by that gate and look through the iron into the courtyard, I want you to answer this question for me mentally. How would your day ever start wrong if you got to walk out in the courtyard like this, have a cup of coffee, read your paper, something like that? Just kind of walk by and look at the courtyard. I'm sure somebody come along and mess your day up. I don't know how your day would ever start wrong if you started in this place. Window unit? I promise you. now, when you see all this renovation stuff going on, it's like it's such a bother when it comes to the staffing and stuff. When you see what they've done, they finished. Wow. What are they on now? One of the cool things about my job is I get to go where I want to talk about things I like. This is my favorite house in all of Charleston. It's not the biggest, it's not the most elaborate, so we look the prettiest. There's something about this house, it's sort of a squatty bohemian foundation kind of house. And it might be the house, it might be where the house sits on the property, or maybe it's the wall. 1743, they were the original King's Grant here. So before the Revolution, before the French and Indian War, before that ever happened, that wall was sitting in this one. And they sat in a very prominent location when they built the house because they were sitting just up over the water. This is Water Street, and it's where Banjo's Creek was. They're sitting up on the creek bank. So if that's where the waterway is, what is she leaning on? Boat mooring. Those are bollards for boat moorings. That's exactly what it is. Y'all watch yourself as we're going down the hill here, but the ears probably popping, stuff like that. So when this story happened to me, y'all see the piece down there with where the blue tapes around the windows where there are not shutters yet? Okay, that piece didn't exist then. That's important to remember. Okay, that piece was not there. So I'm down here a few months ago, and we differently. We're coming down from the north right up from the south. And I stopped right in that spot right there. It's a great place to talk about single house design. There are 3 or 4 months together. Good place to look at the architecture. So I'm standing here talking. And while I'm talking, out this front door walks this gorgeous blonde girl. I mean, she is absolutely stunning. She comes walking down that porch where we're standing right beside her house right there. And I'm not good at judging this kind of thing, but she's probably, I don't know, 17, 18 months pregnant, something like that. So she comes walking the stairs, we're standing right there. Oh, she's so friendly. Oh, hey y'all, welcome to Charleston. Glad to have you in the neighborhood this morning. Hope y'all having a good day. She was so friendly. I said, did you want to talk about your house? Oh yes, 1769, used to be a bridge across the creek, because this is Water Street, right? Used to be a bridge across the creek. Blah, blah, blah. She's talking on, and she's very pregnant. She says, we've been trying to get a permit to sit and add a wing to the house. We got the baby coming, don't have the space kids yet. But now that baby, she had that baby months ago. They are just now getting that piece together in place up there. So later today in your quiet time, we can also whisper a little prayer for them. They've really been struggling. They got that new baby coming. Y'all be thinking about that later thing. In the modern era, architectural shingles. All right, as you got here in the harbor, this body of water that's coming down this way, this is the Cooper River. The body of water that comes from the other side, forming the front, so is the Ashley River. Both these rivers are named for the same person. The leader of the 8 men that got all the land originally, his name was Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper. So he got both these rivers named for himself. Then he wanted Broad Street called Cooper Street. They said, that is ridiculous. Would you just stop it? There's a finger of land that's coming across from the left-hand side. That's Fort Gulcher, where the British were beaten in 1776. Now, sort of in front of that, and a little flag out there, there's a little fort out there where nothing important ever happened at all. That's Castle Pinckney. I'm not even going to talk about it. Then there's another finger plant coming across on the right-hand side. That's Fort Johnson, where the first shot of the Civil War came from. But 5 miles out in the center, a little man-made island named for the last living Revolutionary War general. He was from South Carolina. His name was Thomas Sumter. His nickname was the Gamecock, and USC team's always been the Gamecocks. That's Fort Sumter sitting out there. Just a single story left now because of Civil War damage. But if you can imagine for a second what the U.S. Pentagon would look like if it were 3 stories tall and made of brick, that's what you see in 1861. Now, I was going to talk about a couple battles, but before I do that, let me ask y'all a question. Have you figured out yet our love affair with these palmetto trees? They are everywhere. That's on our tag. It's on our flag. Our nickname here is the Palmetto State. Palmetto is from 2 Spanish words. Palmito, it means little palm. It's the only native palm that grows north of the state of Florida. But the reason we're so crazy about that tree, oh, the British, they didn't know about that tree. They sailed into our harbor June 28, 1776. 9 British warships, 300 cannons, 3,000 professionally trained soldiers, sailors, and Marines. What's waiting on the American side? Not much. 425 volunteers. These guys are all militia. They've not even been trained to fire a cannon before. They're out there hiding behind 2 little walls of a half-built fort made out of palmetto logs and sand. But here's what the British didn't know, how spongy that tree is. Because every time they fired those cannons, and they fired for 9.5 hours, those cannonballs were absorbed in the sand or bounced off those palmetto logs. And today, all 3 symbols of South Carolina's flag are taken from that one battle. The Americans in the battle had on deep blue colored coats. That's the color of our flag. It looks like a moon on our flag.
Land Rover. It's English Land Rover, man. Look at this. So this wall, this brick, is the original wall.
We'll see. We're going to get across East Bay. I'm going to get you up by Rainbow
What's
Road.
the
We'll go all
ocean?
the way past. You can take a good look at it, and then we'll talk about it when we get to the top. Heading across the street here again.
Now the ocean's way over there.
Keto diet, that must be Japanese food. Why would you need that? You've got a jobbing board in the front porch. Invented early 1800s up near Acton Plantation near Sumter, South Carolina. Invented for Southern women to get exercise. Skeptical? Really? Old traditional Charleston is going to be the better selection today. Okay, so if you're going to exercise, what kind of clothing are you going to Okay, first of all, you need some proper clothing. So you got your chemise, that's your shifts, that go all the way down your knees. Your stockings, you got garland. Then a couple of petticoats. Then 3 corsets. The dress on top of that. You got a couple pieces here, that's obviously detailed. You got a mop cap up top, got a cap in that, boots on your Alright, normally longer than this, so they bounce. I'm not going to bounce on this. She's not going to bounce on this. But normally they're bouncy, so they're longer. They're bouncy. So it's supposed to simulate the motion of a carriage, like back and forth, up and down. Okay. So here's your routine. Are you watching? Here's your routine. Here we go. You don't have to do it. I'll just show you. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Ooh, feel the burn. Here's what Southern men figured out. Put the girl that I like on that side, put themselves on this side. Bounce, bounce, bounce. That's where the little Southerners come from. Right there. All right. Every time you see a cool change, looking at different private single family residence. Right now, $3 to $5 million pushing hard. For the window boxes here in Elliott, I thought just decoration, but originally functional. Think about those windows being up in the 1700s. You got all those street smells coming in. So put flowers and herbs right there. It's kind of like the Febreze of the 1700s. A lot of people have seen the front of Rainbow Road, but they've never seen the back of Rainbow Road before. And to me, the back is prettier than the front of it. Just kind of pull in here a little bit with these old kitchen houses back here. By law, until about the year 1900, the rule was you don't put that kitchen in the house because of the risk of fire. In addition to serving as a kitchen house, which served parsonage quarters for the enslaved, they lived upstairs and they worked in the downstairs part of the building. Because of the way the houses are designed, that Charleston single house pattern, a lot of times you can't see the other buildings on the property because the main house is in the way, right? But the lots are narrow and deep, so if you get the correct angle, a lot of times you'll see the ancillary buildings. Not everybody could afford or needed a carriage house or a stable, but you had to have a kitchen. If you had a kitchen by law, it was outside. So a lot of times you'll still see them, like this first one where they connected to what's called hyphenation at the main property right there. But 1, 2, 3 of those kitchen houses sitting right here. And again, to me, I don't know, there's just more to look at here. I like the colors on the front, but just more stuff to see. Mayoral leadership. You got Charleston Place where it is. You got the Ripley's Aquarium where it is. You got the Visitor Center where it is. You say Slave Mark Museum. He got the waterfront park put in place, gave a tax break to homeowners with those gas lanterns outside. He's the mayor that got rid of the power lines. You just can't get to the end of the great stuff that Joe Riley did for Charleston. Cool little alleyway I'll let you explore on your own. There's 7 or 8 of these in Charleston. It looks like a pretty good place to be murdered, but you're probably okay. This one changes directions and character right in the middle, take you all the way up to Broad Street. Most of the time you'll see those green street signs indicating like it's Stoles or Longitude Lane in Philadelphia that is indeed a public street. So you can make your way all the way through here and out to Broad Street. Again, changes directions and character in the middle, but so many of those, our company does a different tour about those. I'm not trying to say you that, you can find them on your own. So go out and explore these. If you need information, get out your phone and Google it, get what we do. $40K a piece, bought all the parking places, started building the lot. It took about 2 years to get the house in place. And that's a brick house covered in stucco with lines drawn in it to make it look like it's made out of stone, even though it just finished about 6 months ago. See, there are situations where you have to build new, it can't look new. Right here, 2007, year of construction. Tumbled brick and muriatic acid, added double doors, assigned retail usage, gas iron work. There are situations, there are moments where you have to build new. It cannot look new. You got like it belongs in the area. Okay. Let's let this car get on, or this truck get running through this, and we'll continue on the next trip. Out back, it's a really fantastic one to see.
Eastern George Washington State.
Hayward, because of its owner, Thomas Hayward Jr., one of the 4 men from South Carolina, signed the Declaration of Independence, one of the 3 that held up the Federal Dungeon. Again, Washington stays here in 1791 while he's here. for that week or so. Something's right here at this house. Right there. All right, 3 last words before we wrap up the tour. First of all, I will not abandon you to wild choice. So we're on Church Street right now. If you go a block and a half this way and turn left, you're right at Broad Street, you turn left, you're right in the city.
St. Michael's Church. French quarters and